My daughter, whom I had always spoiled, was bragging about a luxury vacation to Florida, worth more than $20,000, using my cards without my permission. I smiled, but anger boiled up inside me, so I waited until they left. Then I canceled every card, every reservation, every order. They landed in the middle of nowhere, and I slept like a baby. When I woke up, I had 15 missed calls, and that was just the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. And the presidential suite has this incredible wraparound balcony that overlooks the private beach. Dad, you can literally see dolphins from the bedroom window. I set down my coffee and leaned back in my leather chair, watching the late afternoon sun stream through my office windows. Kayla's voice bubbled through the phone speaker with that infectious excitement I'd grown to love over the years, but something felt off. That sounds amazing, sweetheart. Which resort did you pick? The Oceanfront Grand in Key Largo. It's absolutely perfect. They have this helicopter tour that takes you over the coral reefs, and tomorrow night we're dining at their 5-star restaurant. The chef trained in Paris. My pen tapped against the mahogany desk. Key Largo's beautiful. I remember you mentioning wanting to visit there. I paused, letting the silence stretch just long enough. How much is all this running, you and Ryan? The slightest hesitation. Oh, we've been saving up. Ryan got that bonus from his sales job, and I've been putting aside money from my part-time work at the boutique. I straightened in my chair. Ryan's sales job was 3 hours a week at a car lot, and Kayla's boutique work barely covered her coffee habit. That's wonderful that you two have been so responsible with your finances. Yeah, well, we really wanted to do something special for our anniversary. Your anniversary isn't until October, Kayla. Another pause, longer this time. I meant our dating anniversary, from when we first met. I pulled up my calendar, already knowing what I'd find. That was in February. Dad, you're being so weird about this. Can't I just be excited about my vacation without getting the third degree? The defensive edge in her voice hit me like a cold wave. This was my daughter, my baby girl who used to curl up in my lap and ask me to read her bedtime stories, but the woman on the phone was someone else entirely. Of course you can, sweetheart. I'm just impressed by how much you've managed to save. A presidential suite at the Oceanfront Grand, helicopter tours, 5-star dining. That's got to be running close to $20,000 for the week. It's not that much, Dad. God, you make it sound like we're blowing our life savings. I'm not criticizing, Kayla. I'm proud that you're being financially responsible. Look, I need to go pack. We're leaving for the airport in an hour. Have a wonderful time, sweetheart. Send me pictures. The line went dead, and I stared at my phone. 29 years of fatherhood, and I'd learned to read my daughter's moods like weather patterns. The nervous laugh when she mentioned Ryan's bonus. The way she'd stumbled over the anniversary explanation. The quick topic changes whenever I pressed about money. I set the phone down and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before I typed in my bank's website. The login screen appeared, and I entered my credentials with growing certainty about what I'd find. The afternoon shadows lengthened across my office floor as I sat there, staring at the screen. $20,000, the exact amount I'd mentioned, almost as if I'd known all along. My little girl was stealing from me. 3 days later, I sat in my office with a cup of coffee growing cold beside me. The morning light was softer now, and I'd been staring at bank statements for the better part of an hour. What had started as routine financial review had become something else entirely. There it was, highlighted in yellow, American Airlines, 2,847. The date matched perfectly with Kayla's departure announcement. Below it, Oceanfront Grand Resort, $1,250. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, $890. Blue Water Helicopter Tours, $1,200. Paradise Dining Experience, $750. I reached for my calculator, though I already knew the total. 1,137. Close enough to my $20,000 estimate to make my chest tighten. Each charge appeared on my American Express statement, the card I'd given Kayla for emergencies 3 years ago, the card she'd promised to use responsibly, the card whose statements I'd stopped checking because I trusted her. My phone buzzed with a text from Kayla. Having the most amazing time. The suite is incredible. I screenshot the message, then opened my contacts and dialed her number. It rang 4 times before she answered. "Hey, Dad. What's up?" "Hi, sweetheart. How's Florida treating you?" "Oh my God, it's paradise. We just got back from the helicopter tour, and tonight we're going to that restaurant I told you about. Ryan's taking pictures of everything." "That's wonderful. I'm so glad you two are enjoying yourselves." I clicked through to the next bank statement, noting additional charges I'd missed. "Kayla, I need to ask you something." "Sure, what's up?" "Are you using my credit card for this trip?" The silence stretched for exactly 4 seconds. I counted them. "What?" "No, Dad, of course not. I told you, we saved up for this." "Are you sure?" "Because I'm looking at my American Express statement, and there are charges from your hotel, your flights, even the helicopter tour you just mentioned." That's impossible. Maybe someone stole your card information? You should call the bank right away." Her voice had that same rehearsed quality I'd heard from business partners, trying to cover up mistakes. Smooth, concerned, and completely fabricated. "I'm sure that's what happened," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I'll call them right now. Thank you for letting me know it wasn't you." "Of course, Dad. I would never do something like that. You know I'd ask if I needed help with anything." "I know you would, sweetheart. Enjoy the rest of your trip." "Thanks, Dad. Love you." "Love you too." I hung up and stared at the phone. She'd lied to my face without a moment's hesitation. Not just evaded or dodged. She'd created an elaborate story about credit card theft and expressed genuine-sounding concern for my financial security. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. The little girl who used to confess to breaking vases before I'd even noticed they were damaged had just committed theft and lied about it with professional-level skill. When had I become such an easy mark in my own daughter's eyes? That evening, I found myself in my study, surrounded by photo albums I hadn't opened in years. The burgundy leather covers felt familiar under my fingers as I flipped through decades of family memories. Here was Kayla, at 5, gap-toothed and grinning beside her first bicycle, a pink princess model that had cost me 2 weeks' salary at the time. She'd seen it in the store window and declared it the most beautiful thing in the world. I'd worked overtime for a month to afford it. I turned the page. Kayla at 16, posing beside her first car, not the reliable Honda I'd suggested, but the BMW convertible she'd begged for. "Everyone at school has nice cars, Dad. I'll be so embarrassed." The car had cost $38,000. She'd totaled it 6 months later. Another page. Kayla's college graduation, her smile radiant in cap and gown. 4 years at Emory University. Full tuition, room and board. $160,000. She'd changed majors 3 times and graduated with a degree in art history she'd never used. I closed the album and reached for another. This one was smaller, less organized. Pictures of Michael, my other child, though you wouldn't know it from the way he'd been raised. Here he was at his high school graduation, working part-time at a grocery store to save money for community college. His car was a 15-year-old Honda Civic he'd bought with his own money and maintained himself. The contrast was stark. Michael had asked me for help exactly 3 times in his adult life. Once for a small loan when his car needed repairs, money he'd repaid within 2 months. Once for help with a security deposit on his first apartment, again repaid promptly. The 3rd time was last year when he'd asked if I could help with his wedding expenses. Not demanded, not assumed, asked. And when I'd offered to pay for the entire wedding, he'd insisted on covering half himself. I opened my laptop and pulled up the financial records I'd been compiling. The numbers were staggering. Kayla's college education, $160,000. Cars, $73,000 over the years. Apartment deposits and rent assistance, $34,000. Credit card payments I'd made on her behalf, $28,000. The trust fund I'd established for her 25th birthday, $50,000, which she'd blown through in 18 months. Total, $345,000, not including the countless smaller amounts, dinners, shopping trips, spa days, vacations I'd paid for without question. Michael's total, $8,500, every penny repaid with interest. I pushed back from my desk and walked to the window. The neighborhood was quiet, streetlights casting long shadows across manicured lawns. This house, this life I'd built, it was all supposed to be for them, for my children, to give them opportunities I'd never had. Instead, I'd created a monster. The photo albums still lay open on my desk, showing two paths diverging from the same starting point. One child had learned the value of hard work and self-reliance. The other had learned that Dad would always be there to clean up the mess. I closed the albums and stacked them neatly on the shelf. Tomorrow, Kayla would return from her stolen vacation, expecting everything to continue as it always had. She'd probably already started planning her next financial request, but something had shifted inside me these past few days. The hurt was still there, but it was crystallizing into something harder, more purposeful. My daughter needed to learn that actions have consequences, that stealing from family, from anyone, wasn't acceptable, and I was going to be the one to teach her. The next evening, I settled into my living room with my laptop open and phone within reach. Kayla's Instagram story showed her at the airport, radiant in the departure lounge lighting. "Finally airborne! Florida, here we come!" Blessed life, your presidential suite. Living my best life. I refreshed the page every few minutes, tracking her posts. The airplane interior, Ryan making ridiculous faces in first-class seats, a champagne toast to the best anniversary ever, with a hashtag that made my jaw clench. Daddy's Girl. At 11:47 p.m., her story updated with a blurry photo of lights below. "Somewhere over the Atlantic. Can't wait to see our suite." I waited another 30 minutes, then opened my phone contacts and dialed the Oceanfront Grand Resort. "Oceanfront Grand, this is Marcus speaking. How may I help you?" "Good evening, Marcus. I need to cancel a reservation. Presidential Suite. Checking in tomorrow under the name Kayla Foster." "I'd be happy to help you with that, sir. May I have the confirmation number?" I read it from my bank statement. The reservation was made with my credit card without my authorization. I'm canceling it immediately. "I understand, sir. I see the reservation here. Unfortunately, the presidential suite has a strict 72-hour cancellation policy. The full amount is non-refundable at this point." "That's fine. Please proceed with the cancellation." "Certainly, sir. The reservation has been canceled. The cardholder should receive a confirmation email within the next few minutes." Next, I called Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Same story, same professional courtesy. The luxury convertible Kayla had reserved was no longer available. Yes, there would be a cancellation fee. Yes, I understood and approved. Blue Water Helicopter Tours was next. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can issue a partial refund since you're canceling within 24 hours of the scheduled tour. You'll receive about 40% back. That's acceptable. Please proceed." Each call was the same. Polite explanations, professional understanding, systematic destruction of my daughter's elaborate vacation plans, the paradise dining experience, the private beach cabana rental, the deep-sea fishing charter. One by one, they vanished from existence. My phone buzzed with confirmation emails. Canceled. 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 The final step was the most satisfying. I logged into my American Express account and navigated it to the authorized user section. Kayla Foster. Remove user. The system asked if I was sure. I clicked confirm with more satisfaction than I'd felt in years. By 2:30 a.m., it was done. Every luxury service, every upgrade, every indulgence had been systematically canceled. Kayla would land in Miami tomorrow morning to find herself with nowhere to stay, no transportation, and no way to pay for alternatives. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat back in my chair. My phone was silent now, but I knew that would change soon. Very soon. I went to bed that night with a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. Justice wasn't always swift, but when it came, it was thorough. My phone began buzzing at 6:23 a.m. The caller ID showed Kayla's number. I let it ring. It was just the beginning. I woke up naturally at 7:30, stretching in the morning sunlight that filtered through my bedroom curtains. The sleep had been deep and dreamless, the kind of rest that comes from a clear conscience and a job well done. My phone sat on the nightstand, its screen dark and peaceful. I padded to the kitchen, started the coffee maker, and opened the blinds to let in the full glory of the morning. Birds chirped in the oak tree outside my window. The newspaper lay folded on my front step. It wasn't until I returned with the paper that I noticed my phone screen glowing with notifications. 15 missed calls, all from Kayla. The first had come in at 6:23 a.m., the most recent at 7:41 a.m., just minutes ago. I poured my coffee and took a slow sip before picking up the phone. It immediately began ringing in my hand. "Morning, sweetheart. You're up early." "Dad?" Her voice was cautious, probing. "Were you having trouble with your credit card yesterday?" "Trouble? No. Why do you ask?" "I tried to... I mean, when we checked into the hotel, there seemed to be some kind of issue with the reservation system. The front desk said something about payment problems." I walked to my kitchen window and gazed out at my neighbor's garden. "That's strange. My card's been working fine. Let me check it right now." I made a show of rustling around for my wallet, though I already knew exactly what I'd find. "Nope. Everything looks normal. Maybe I should test it to be sure. Hold on. Dad, you don't need to... No, this is concerning. If there's fraud on my account, I need to know immediately." I drove to the ATM 2 blocks away, taking my time. When I returned 15 minutes later, I called her back. "All good on my end, sweetheart. The card works perfectly. Maybe it was just a computer glitch at your hotel." Silence. Then, yeah, maybe. I finished my coffee and scrambled some eggs, humming softly to myself. The phone rang again at 9:15. This time her voice was different, higher-pitched, strained. "Dad, something's really wrong. The hotel says our reservation was canceled last night. They're saying someone called and canceled everything." "That's terrible." "Did they say who called?" "They said it was the card holder." "But that's impossible because we paid for everything ourselves, remember?" I set down my fork and leaned back in my chair. "Of course I remember, Kayla. You told me you and Ryan had saved up for this trip." "We did. So why would the hotel think the card holder canceled? It doesn't make any sense." "I have no idea, sweetheart. Where are you staying now?" "Some terrible motel off the highway." "Dad, this place is disgusting. The air conditioning barely works, and there are stains on the carpet that I don't even want to think about. I'm so sorry this happened to you both. The rental car got canceled too, and the helicopter tour, and our dinner reservations. Everything just vanished." I made sympathetic noises while internally marveling at the efficiency of last night's work. "Dad," her voice dropped to a whisper, "you didn't... You wouldn't have..." "Wouldn't have what, Kayla?" "Nothing. Never mind." But I could hear it in her voice, the first seeds of suspicion taking root. She was starting to put the pieces together. "Actually, Dad, I need to ask you something directly." "Of course, sweetheart. Ask me anything." "Did you cancel our reservations?" The question hung in the air between us like a sword waiting to fall. I set my coffee cup down slowly, considering my response. The time for games had passed. "Yes, I did." The silence stretched for exactly 7 seconds. I counted them. "What? What do you mean, yes?" "I mean yes, Kayla. I canceled every reservation, every tour, every service you booked with my stolen credit card." "Stolen?" "Dad, I didn't steal anything. I just borrowed. $18,137. My voice remained perfectly level. "American Airlines, April 15th. Oceanfront Grand Resort, April 15th. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, April 16th. Should I continue?" "Dad, you don't understand. It was just a temporary thing. I was going to pay you back." "With what money, Kayla? Your part-time boutique job that pays $9 an hour? Ryan's 3-hour-a-week car lot position?" "We have savings." "No, you don't. You have my money that you took without asking. That's called theft." Her breathing grew ragged. "Fine. So I used your card. So what? You're my father. It's not like I'm some stranger. Being my daughter doesn't give you the right to steal from me. I wasn't stealing. God, you're being so dramatic. It's family money anyway, right? I mean, what's yours is mine eventually, so what's the big deal if I take some of it now?" The casual entitlement in her voice hit me like a physical blow. "Eventually? Kayla, you're not entitled to anything I've earned. Come on, Dad. Don't be like this. You've always helped me out before. This is just bigger." "How much bigger, Kayla?" "What do you mean?" "This isn't the first time, is it?" The silence told me everything I needed to know. "Kayla, how much bigger?" "I don't know what you're talking about. Try again." "Dad, you're scaring me. Why are you being like this?" "Because my daughter is a thief, and I'm just now realizing how bad it's gotten." "Don't call me that. Then tell me the truth. How long have you been using my card without permission?" "It's not... I mean, it was just little things sometimes. Dinners out, or when I needed gas, or..." "How long, Kayla?" "Maybe a few months. But Dad, it was never anything big. Just when I needed help, and I knew you'd say yes anyway if I asked. A few months. My hands began to shake with suppressed rage. So instead of asking your father for help like a normal person, you decided to steal from me for months. I'm going to pay it all back. With what money? I'll get a better job. I'll work overtime. You'll what? You can't even hold down the part-time job you have now. That's not fair? Fair? You want to talk about fair? My voice was rising now, and I didn't care. Fair would have been asking for help. Fair would have been respecting the man who raised you, fed you, clothed you, and paid for your entire existence for 29 years. You're being horrible. I'm being honest, and clearly that's something you're not used to hearing. The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a moment, then walked directly to my computer. If she'd been stealing for a few months, I needed to know exactly how much damage we were talking about. I opened my American Express account and began scrolling backward through the statements. February, January, December. There, Le Bernardin in New York, $347. I remembered asking her about her weekend in the city. She'd said her friend had paid for dinner. November, Nordstrom, $892. The shopping trip for job interview clothes that her savings had covered. October, Four Seasons, Atlanta, $445. The girls' night spa weekend that had been such a great deal. September, Louis Vuitton, 1,200. The purse that had been a gift from Ryan. The numbers climbed steadily as I went back further. Restaurants, shopping, hotels, jewelry stores, beauty treatments, all charged to my card, all explained away with elaborate lies. I reached for my calculator and began adding. The vacation was just the tip of the iceberg. Total unauthorized charges over 6 months, $23,147. Almost $24,000. Stolen piece by piece while she looked me in the eye and lied. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. My daughter hadn't just betrayed my trust. She'd been systematically robbing me for half a year, while pretending to be grateful for my support. The phone in my hand felt heavier than it should have. I needed air, space, something other than bank statements and calculators, and the growing realization that I'd raised a criminal. I moved to the living room and collapsed into my leather recliner, the same chair where I'd read Kayla, bedtime stories 20 years ago. My phone sat beside me, and almost without thinking, I opened Instagram. The app loaded to a notification. Kayla Foster posted to their story. Curiosity got the better of me. I tapped the notification. The screen filled with shaky video footage of what looked like a highway motel. Kayla's voice narrated over images of peeling wallpaper and a flickering bathroom light. So this is where my father has forced me to stay on what was supposed to be my dream vacation. The camera panned across water stains on the ceiling. Thanks to his controlling, manipulative behavior, this is my reality now. I watched in growing horror as she continued the tour. The threadbare carpet, the broken air conditioning unit, the view of a parking lot filled with semi-trucks. The video ended, but more story bubbles appeared. I tapped the next one. A photo of her face, mascara streaked, eyes red from crying. The caption read, "When your own father sabotages your happiness because he can't stand to see you succeed. Toxic parents, financial abus, manipulation." I nearly dropped the phone. Another story, a long text post over a black background. Growing up with a father who uses money to control every aspect of your life, who promises love but delivers conditions, who can't bear to see his children independent or happy. Trauma talk. Generational trauma. Narcissistic parents. The comments were already pouring in. Girl, cut him off completely. You deserve so much better than this. Toxic parents never change. Go no contact. Sue him for emotional damages. I kept scrolling, watching my daughter systematically destroy my reputation in real time. Story after story, each one painting me as an abusive, controlling monster who had ruined her life out of spite. The final story was a direct video message to the camera. To everyone asking what happened, my father has always been like this. Growing up, he would promise things and then take them away if I didn't behave exactly how he wanted. Nothing was ever unconditional with him, and now, as an adult, he's still trying to control me by canceling my vacation that I worked so hard to afford. She worked so hard to afford, with my stolen money. He can't stand that I'm independent now, that I don't need him anymore. So he decided to punish me by calling my hotel and pretending there were problems with payment. He sabotaged everything out of pure malice. Independent. The woman who had stolen nearly $24,000 from me was calling herself independent. I'm sharing this because I know other people have parents like this, and I want you to know you're not alone. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us unconditionally are the ones who hurt us the most. The video ended with her wiping away a tear and looking directly into the camera, with wounded, brave eyes. I closed the app and set the phone down with shaking hands. In the span of 3 hours, my daughter had stolen from me, lied to me, publicly humiliated me, and painted herself as a victim of my abuse. She'd turned a simple case of theft and consequences into a social media campaign designed to destroy my reputation and garner sympathy for herself. The comments were still coming in, hundreds of them now, from strangers who knew nothing about the situation except Kayla's version of events. Strangers who were now convinced I was a monster. I looked around my living room at the family photos scattered across the mantelpiece. Kayla at her high school graduation, Kayla at her college graduation, Kayla's birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family vacations, all paid for by the man she was now calling abusive on the internet. The same man who had just discovered she'd been robbing him for 6 months. If Kayla wanted to portray me as the villain, she was about to learn what that actually looked like. I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer's office. Henderson and Associates. This is Rebecca. Rebecca, this is Raymond Foster. I need to schedule an emergency appointment with Jim first thing tomorrow morning. Of course, Mr. Foster. May I ask what this is regarding? I looked at the photo on my mantelpiece, Kayla's sweet 16 party, where she'd hugged me and whispered that I was the best dad in the world. Trust fund modifications, I said, and will changes. The next morning, I sat in Jim Henderson's office at exactly 9 a.m., wearing my best business suit and carrying a leather portfolio filled with printed bank statements. Jim had been my attorney for 15 years, handling everything from business contracts to my divorce. He was one of the few people I trusted completely. Raymond. He stood and shook my hand, his expression serious. Rebecca said this was urgent. What can I do for you? I opened my portfolio and placed the bank statements on his mahogany desk. I need to modify a trust fund and make changes to my will. Jim settled back in his chair, his fingers steepled. All right. Which trust are we talking about? The one I established for Kayla's 30th birthday, $200,000, currently set to vest next year. I remember that trust. What kind of modifications are you considering? I slid the bank statements across the desk. I want her removed as beneficiary entirely. The money should go to Michael instead. Jim picked up the papers and scanned them quickly, his eyebrows rising as he took in the highlighted charges. These are all unauthorized? Every single one. 6 months of systematic theft, culminating in an $18,000 vacation she took without my knowledge or permission. Have you discussed this with her? Yesterday. She admitted to it, justified it by saying it was family money anyway, and then spent the evening destroying my reputation on social media. I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots of Kayla's Instagram stories. She's painting me as an abusive parent for having the audacity to cancel the vacation she purchased with my stolen money. Jim read through the posts, his expression growing more grim with each screenshot. This is quite extensive. She's really committed to this narrative. Committed enough that I've decided she needs to learn about real consequences. I want her completely removed from my will as well. Jim set down the phone and leaned forward. Raymond, I have to ask. Are you certain about this? These are permanent changes we're talking about. Family relationships can heal, but legal documents are harder to undo. She stole nearly $24,000 from me, Jim. Then she lied about it. Then she publicly accused me of abuse for stopping her from stealing more. At what point do I stop enabling her behavior and start protecting myself? I understand your anger. This isn't anger. This is justice. I pulled out another document from my portfolio. I've also compiled a list of previous loans and gifts over the past 5 years. $345,000, Jim, not including her education. Jim whistled low. That's a significant amount. She's never paid back a single penny, never even offered to. And now I find out she's been stealing on top of all the money I've freely given her. I leaned back in my chair. She's made it clear that she sees me as nothing more than an ATM, so I'm removing her access to that ATM permanently. Jim was quiet for a long moment, studying the documents. What about attempts at family mediation? Family therapy? You can't mediate with someone who feels entitled to steal from you, and you certainly can't trust them with a $200,000 inheritance. What does your son think about all this? Michael doesn't know yet. I plan to call him this afternoon. I straightened in my chair. Michael has never asked me for anything he didn't desperately need, and he's always paid me back with interest. He deserves to benefit from my hard work, not the daughter who's been systematically robbing me. Jim nodded slowly. All right, if you're certain this is what you want, I can draft the modifications. The trust fund change will require a 30-day waiting period and notification to all current beneficiaries. The will changes can be executed immediately. How long before everything takes effect? 6 weeks for the trust modifications to be legally binding. The will changes are effective as soon as you sign them. And she'll be notified? She'll receive legal notice of the trust fund changes, yes. It's required by law. I smiled for the first time in days. Perfect. I want her to know exactly what her choices have cost her. Jim began pulling forms from his filing cabinet. I'll need you to initial several changes and provide updated beneficiary information for Michael. Are you prepared to do this today? I've been prepared since yesterday morning. 2 hours later, I walked out of Henderson and Associates with a thick folder of legal documents and a profound sense of satisfaction. Kayla's trust fund, the safety net I'd created to help her start her adult life, was now designated for Michael, who had actually earned it through years of respect and responsibility. My will no longer contained her name anywhere. I sat in my car in the parking garage, holding the documents that would change everything. In 6 weeks, Kayla would receive a formal legal notice that she'd been disinherited. She'd learn that her choices had consequences that extended far beyond a canceled vacation. She wanted to be independent. She was about to get her wish. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Michael's number. It was time to let him know that his integrity and character had finally been rewarded. The red light gave me time to dial. I sat in my car with the legal documents spread across the passenger seat, watching other drivers rush through their Wednesday afternoon routines. Michael answered on the second ring. Hey, Dad, what's up? Hi, son. I have some important news to share with you. Are you somewhere you can talk? Sure, I'm just finishing lunch at work. Is everything okay? I pulled into my driveway and turned off the engine. I need to tell you about some changes I've made to my will and to Kayla's trust fund. Silence. Then, Dad, what's going on? Michael, I'm transferring Kayla's $200,000 trust fund to you, and I've removed her from my will entirely. What? Why would you... Dad, what happened? I gathered the documents and walked into my house, settling into my office chair. Kayla has been stealing from me for months, nearly $24,000 in unauthorized charges on my credit card. That can't be right. Kayla wouldn't... She admitted it, Michael. I have all the documentation right here. I pulled up the bank statements on my computer. Would you like me to go through the charges with you? Yes. I need to understand what you're saying. I read through the list methodically. The restaurants, the shopping sprees, the hotels, the vacation, each charge with its date and amount. Michael grew quieter with each item. And when you confronted her about this? She said it was family money anyway and that she was just borrowing. Then she spent yesterday posting on Instagram about what an abusive, controlling father I am. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Dad, when was the last time you talked to Kayla? I mean, really talked to her? Before this week? Probably 2 months ago. She called asking about refinancing her car loan. Yeah, we don't really talk anymore either. Not since she married Ryan. He paused. She's changed a lot, Dad. She used to be different. I know she was. But people become who they choose to become, Michael. And she's chosen to become someone who steals from family, and then plays the victim when there are consequences. This trust fund thing? Dad, I don't feel right about taking money that was meant for her. Michael, you've never asked me for anything you didn't absolutely need. You've paid back every penny I've ever loaned you with interest. You work 60 hours a week to support your family and still find time to help your neighbors. I leaned back in my chair. Kayla works 15 hours a week and believes I owe her a luxury lifestyle. Which one of my children deserves to inherit the results of my hard work? When you put it like that, I'm not punishing Kayla out of spite. I'm rewarding you for being the man I raised you to be. There's a difference. What happens now? Does she know about this yet? She'll receive legal notification when she gets back from her stolen vacation. I expect that conversation will be unpleasant. Dad, be careful. Ryan's got a temper when he doesn't get his way. I'm not afraid of Ryan. I know you're not. But maybe you should be prepared for them to react badly. I looked at the documents spread across my desk. Legal proof that I'd chosen character over blood, integrity over family obligation. They can react however they want, Michael, but they can't steal from me anymore, and they can't manipulate me into enabling their behavior. Are you sure about this? Really sure? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. We talked for another 10 minutes about practical details, about the legal timeline, about his own family's reaction to the unexpected windfall. When we hung up, I sat in my office surrounded by the evidence of my daughter's betrayal and my son's worthiness. Tomorrow, I'd mail copies of the trust modification to Kayla. By the time she received them, there would be no turning back. But that was the point. 3 days later, I drove to Kayla's apartment complex and slipped a manila envelope into her mailbox. The documents inside would speak louder than any conversation we might have. Legal language had a way of cutting through manipulation and getting straight to the truth. I drove home and waited. The call came at 2:47 p.m. the following Tuesday. What the hell is this? Kayla's voice was shaking with rage before I'd even said hello. Legal documents. I assume you've read them. You can't do this. You can't just steal my money. Your money? Kayla, you just spent the last week vacationing on my stolen money, and now you're accusing me of theft? That trust fund was mine. You promised it to me. I promised it to the daughter I thought I was raising. That person doesn't seem to exist anymore. Dad, you have to change this back. Please. You don't understand. Ryan's already made plans for that money. We were going to buy a house, start a family. Plans made with stolen money tend to fall through. The line went quiet, except for muffled conversation in the background. Ryan's voice getting louder. We're coming over, Kayla said. We need to talk about this face to face. No, we don't. Yes, we do. We'll be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. I sat in my living room and waited, though I didn't have to wait long. 17 minutes later, my front door shook under aggressive pounding. Open up, Raymond, Ryan's voice carried through the wood. We need to talk. I opened the door to find them both standing on my porch, Kayla's face blotchy from crying, Ryan's hands clenched into fists. This is insane. Ryan pushed past me into my living room. You can't just take away money that isn't yours. Ryan, this is my house. You don't get to barge in here and make demands. That trust fund belongs to Kayla. No, it belonged to the person I thought Kayla was. It turns out I was mistaken about her character. Kayla collapsed onto my couch, the legal papers crumpled in her hands. Dad, please. I'm sorry about the credit card thing. I'll pay you back. With what money? I'll get a better job. I'll work more hours. I'll do whatever you want. What I want is a daughter who doesn't steal from me and then lie about it. Ryan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You're going to fix this, old man. You're going to call your lawyer and undo whatever bullshit you've pulled. Or what? Or you're going to find out what happens when you mess with the wrong people. I pulled out my phone. Are you threatening me in my own home, Ryan? I'm telling you how things are going to go. Mr. Foster. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, appeared in my still open doorway. Is everything all right? I heard yelling. The presence of a witness transformed the room instantly. Ryan stepped back, his aggressive posture shifting to something more socially acceptable. Kayla wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. Everything's fine, Mrs. Patterson. Just a family discussion that got a little heated. She looked between Ryan's red face and Kayla's tear-streaked appearance. If you're sure. We were just leaving. Kayla stood up, shooting me a look filled with pure venom. Weren't we, Ryan? Ryan stared at me for a long moment, his jaw working silently. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I kept my voice level and calm. And if you threaten me again, I'll call the police. Is that clear? They left without another word, Ryan's shoulder deliberately bumping mine as he passed. I watched through my window as they argued in their car before driving away. Mrs. Patterson lingered in my doorway. "Raymond, are you sure you're okay?" That young man seemed very angry. "Family problems, Eleanor. Nothing I can't handle. If you need anything—" "Thank you, I appreciate the concern." She left, and I closed the door, turning the deadbolt for the first time in years. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from adrenaline. Ryan had just threatened me in front of a witness. Kayla had demanded I reverse legal decisions, made by attorneys, and backed by months of evidence. They'd both acted as if stealing $24,000 was a minor misunderstanding that could be fixed with apologies and promises. I walked to my kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, looking out at the quiet street where normal families lived normal lives. Somewhere out there, Kayla and Ryan were planning their next move, but I'd already made mine. Eleanor lingered on my porch, her gray eyes filled with concern. "Are you certain everything's all right, Raymond? That was quite a disturbance." "Just some family disagreements about financial matters. Nothing that can't be resolved through proper channels." She nodded, though her expression remained troubled. "Well, you know where to find me if you need anything. Harold and I are always home in the evenings." After she left, I found myself standing alone in my living room, the echo of raised voices still hanging in the air. The house felt larger somehow, more empty. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, doubt crept in around the edges. Had I been too harsh? Was there truth in Kayla's tears and her promises to change? She was still my daughter, still the little girl who used to make me Father's Day cards with crayon drawings of us holding hands. I spent the next 3 days in a strange kind of limbo, going through my usual routines while replaying the confrontation. The memory of Ryan's threat bothered me less than the image of Kayla's face when she'd read the legal documents. Raw desperation, complete shock. Maybe I should have tried family counseling first. Maybe I should have given her a chance to pay me back before involving lawyers. On Friday morning, my doubts crystallized into action. I was reaching for my phone to call Jim Henderson about potentially reversing some of the legal changes when my doorbell rang. A young man in a courier uniform stood on my porch with a clipboard and official-looking envelope. "Raymond Foster, that's me. Please sign here. You're being served with legal papers." I signed mechanically and took the envelope, my stomach dropping even before I opened it. Inside was a formal lawsuit, filed by Kayla Foster against Raymond Foster, alleging psychological abuse, financial manipulation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I read through the document slowly, my disbelief growing with each paragraph. According to her complaint, I had systematically controlled and manipulated her through financial coercion. The trust fund she'd never earned was described as promised compensation for years of emotional abuse. My cancellation of her stolen vacation was characterized as malicious sabotage designed to cause maximum psychological harm. She was asking for $250,000 in damages. The lawsuit painted a picture of me as a monster who had psychologically tormented my daughter for years, using money as a weapon to maintain control over her life. Every boundary I'd ever set, every consequence I'd ever imposed, was reframed as evidence of abuse. Reading her version of our relationship was like looking into a funhouse mirror where every normal parental interaction was twisted into something sinister. I set the papers down and walked to my filing cabinet, pulling out the folder I'd compiled of bank statements, canceled checks, and financial records. 29 years of supporting her education, her lifestyle, her mistakes. Hundreds of thousands of dollars freely given, no strings attached. The contrast was stark. Here was documentation of generosity spanning decades, and there was her legal claim that I'd been financially abusive. I called Jim Henderson. "Raymond, I was expecting your call. I assume you've been served?" "How did you know?" "Because this is exactly what happens when entitled people face real consequences for the first time. They attack." His voice was calm, professional. "How are you holding up?" Honestly, I was starting to second-guess myself before this arrived. Now I'm remembering why I made these changes in the first place. Good, because this lawsuit is going to be easy to defend. You have documentation of voluntary financial support, going back years, clear evidence of unauthorized use of your credit cards, and witness testimony about their threatening behavior. What about her claims of psychological abuse? Raymond, setting boundaries with an adult child isn't abuse. Refusing to enable theft isn't manipulation. We'll present the facts and let them speak for themselves. We talked for another 20 minutes about legal strategy and timeline. When I hung up, I felt steadier, more certain of my course. I spread the lawsuit papers across my dining table next to my own documentation. The evidence was overwhelming. Every charge Kayla had made against my character was contradicted by decades of proof showing exactly the opposite. But as I organized my defense materials, something unexpected happened. Instead of the anger I'd expected to feel, a strange sense of peace settled over me. My daughter had just proven, in legal documents filed with the court system, that she was exactly who I'd thought she'd become. Someone who would lie, manipulate, and destroy family relationships, rather than take responsibility for her choices. The doubt vanished. This lawsuit wasn't an attack on my character. It was vindication of every decision I'd made. I was still organizing documents when my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me open it. The message was longer than my screen could display at once. "Dad, this is Kayla. I got a new number. I know you probably don't want to hear from me right now, but I need to tell you something important. I dropped the lawsuit this morning. I'm not fighting you anymore." I scrolled down, reading the rest of her message with growing surprise. "I've had a lot of time to think over the past 2 months. Ryan and I separated 3 weeks ago. He was the one pushing for the lawsuit, said we could make you pay for disrespecting us. But sitting in that lawyer's office, listening to him talk about destroying you in court, I realized I didn't recognize myself anymore. I did steal from you. There's no other word for it. I took your trust and your money and then acted like you owed me even more. I convinced myself I deserved it because we're family. But that's not how family works, is it? You raised me better than this. I remember being proud of having a dad who worked so hard, who built something from nothing. Somewhere along the way, I started seeing your success as something I was entitled to, instead of something I should try to earn myself. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I'm not asking for money, or for you to change the trust fund back. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what you were trying to teach me. Actions have consequences. Respect has to be earned. Family doesn't mean you get a free pass to hurt people. I'm getting my own apartment, working full-time at the boutique, and trying to figure out who I want to be without Ryan's influence or your safety net. It's scary, but maybe that's what I needed. I love you, Dad. I hope someday you can love me again, too. Kayla." I read the message 3 times, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agendas. The tone was different from anything she'd written to me in years. No demands, no justifications, no attempts to minimize her behavior. Could people really change this dramatically? Or was this just a more sophisticated manipulation? I set my phone down and walked to my kitchen window, looking out at the garden I'd been neglecting since this whole ordeal began. The roses needed pruning. The lawn needed attention. Life had continued moving forward while I'd been focused on legal battles and family betrayal. 2 months of silence. 2 months for both of us to process what had happened, to live with the consequences of our choices. Maybe that's what we'd both needed. My phone sat on the counter, waiting for a response. I could text back immediately, begin the slow process of rebuilding trust, or I could wait, let more time pass, see if this apparent change was genuine or temporary. I thought about the Michael I'd raised, the son who'd never needed dramatic consequences because he'd learned accountability early. I thought about the Kayla I'd raised, the daughter who'd somehow lost her way but might be finding it again. The afternoon light was fading, casting long shadows across my kitchen floor. I picked up my phone and reread her message one more time, then set it back down without responding. Some things couldn't be rushed. Trust, once broken, required time and consistent action to rebuild. If Kayla was truly changing, she'd understand that. If she wasn't, she'd reveal herself by demanding immediate forgiveness. For now, the silence would continue. Not out of cruelty, but out of wisdom earned through experience. I'd spent 29 years enabling her mistakes by making forgiveness too easy, Consequences, too soft. If she wanted a relationship with her father, she'd have to prove she was worthy of one. Time would tell which daughter I'd be dealing with, the one who stole from me or the one who'd written this message. Until I knew for certain, the door would remain open, but the trust fund would stay exactly where it was. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.